Hey guys, how's it going? After a couple eventful weeks that I had, I finally was able to get some time aside so I can make a review of the gift I received about 2 weeks ago, no, a week ago, I think, a week or so ago, from my friend Jonathan from At One Challenge, and it is nothing more, nothing less than the language hacking set. Look at this. Yes, it is the language hacking set. Okay, so I spent a couple days looking through each one of them, and as you probably saw in other videos that even Jonathan made a review video, and a couple other people too. You have 4 languages on this one. I don't know if they have more languages coming out, but you have Italian, French, Spanish, and German. Okay, so um, I looked at those books in 3 different ways. The first, of course, is the language lover, the language fanatic. So what can I get out of it? Me, Jeff, if I read the books, what I can get out of it. The second, as a linguist, so does the book really offer what it says it offers on the cover? Because first thing I do personally, I look at a book, a cover, and I see the elements, right? The promises and the presentation of the book. Here you have your friendly Irish polyglot, Benny Lewis. Uh, you probably saw him in several videos and mentioned in interviews and in the media in general. He does know his stuff, and this is not the first book. His the first book series he has put together. He has also this one, Fluent in 3 Months, which I didn't read it. I listened to it. I got the audio from I think was from the Amazon audio app. I don't remember now the name, but I heard it on the way to work, and it is amazing. It is cool because as a language learner, you listen to some things, you're like, oh my gosh, I thought I was the only one that did that, and some other things you're like, well, I never thought about that, and that's pretty common. You know, when you talk to other people that study languages, study different languages than you do, you pick up some things, and some things are all the same. But it's like um, after all is said and done, he really understands how to approach a language and how to study. Anyway, going back to the elements of the book. So it says it is a conversation course for beginners. Learn by speaking right away, embrace your mistakes, master power phrases, do 20% of the work, get 80% of the results. So because of these elements that it presents in the book, I have to take a look at the book as a linguist, as a person that is studying languages in different aspects, and study how to teach language or how to learn languages, how languages are approached, and the study of language as a whole, as a subject. And the third way, I look at the book as if I didn't know the language at all. If I was starting fresh, starting from scratch, so I would have um, the point of view of somebody that just pick up the book and really want to learn the language. And right up, from the get go, I was quite impressed on all 3 aspects. I really like the book, but I'm gonna give you more details on these things. Um, so okay, we have 4 books, right? We have these 4 languages, as you can see. Okay, and then the first thing you ask, wow, it probably took a long time to write all this, right? But if you compare all the each book, if you read each book and compare among themselves, you're gonna notice that they are like the cookie cutter style. That's I don't mean that in a bad way. What I'm saying is, what was done was he created a structure for a beginner learner to right away start to communicate with people, which I think that's what every person looks for unless they are being forced to learn the language. If they don't give a crap about speaking, there's no point. They'll be studying and learning whatever people give to them if they are spoon fed. If a person really wants to learn the language, is for a communicative purpose, and this is it. It is a conversation course. So a conversation course for beginner, yes, that's 100%. Why do I say this? Is because if you look through the units, um, from each unit will have a step in a real conversation. Imagine you meet a person for the first time, right? What is the first thing that you're gonna talk about? You're gonna talk about yourself, and you're gonna ask the person questions, and that's exactly what the first unit is. It's talk about me, right? And if you change the pronouns, you're gonna be asking about the person. So talking about me, asking about you, right? The next step is asking about the person. Solving communication problems. How to get into the conversation and get away of problems in communication. For example, like you don't understand what the person is saying, you don't know a word or two, or you're trying to figure out what the person's trying to say. So basically, circumlocution in the language, right? Then you go through describing your future plans, talking about family and friends, having some food, drink, and conversation, talking about yesterday, last week, a long time ago. So basically, the notion of time and thus the tenses of the verbs. It's been a while, like meeting a person again, daily routine, blah blah blah, and describing something. Um, so me, what is my opinion on this? This is the bread and butter of basic communication in language learning. You have to start somewhere, and that's how you start, right? Talk about yourself, things you like, things you don't like, what you do, work, study. You ask about a person, your plans, and things like that, and then you describe something, and people are gonna ask, so what? How is your? Why? What does your country look like? How is your house? What does your house look like? Tell me about your family, friends, your parents, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your wife, your husband, your why you're here, what do you like in the country? Describe it to me. So if you take on a linguistics side, that's basically the first 1/3 of a possible OPI or oral proficiency interview. So this book will take you through the first third of oral proficiency interview. Um, if you're not familiar with the OPI, is a government basically nationwide test for language proficiency and is accepted by all major government organizations and companies and everything. So it is very well known and backed up. Okay, so that's on the linguistic side. On me learning, I also give a thumbs up because that's how I approach language. The first thing I learn in the language, other than the alphabet and basic words, is how to talk about myself. Because you don't approach somebody saying, "Hi, what's the weather today?" That doesn't make any sense, right? You can start a small talk by doing that, but I prefer to ask the person's name or asking how the person is doing, what the person is doing there, and things like that. Basically, very basic things. So as a language learner, I like this approach. And for somebody that is starting to study a language, that's the way to do it. So the overall approach of the book, I I I, I back it up. I like the structure of the book. Um, Because like I said, because the all four books have the same structure, I was wondering if the basic structure of the book was created by him or was created by somebody else. And I have to say that the structure of the book, how it is presented, for example, if you go to lesson one, you're gonna you're gonna notice that there is always a dialogue, right? There's a situation. There's a introduction, brief introduction, a dialogue, and then following some explanation or um, like here it calls figure it out. Um, so basically, for you to infer meaning to words, which is a very strong cognitive technique that basically forces you to give meaning to expressions. If you do that, your brain is not gonna rely on a preset meaning given by a dictionary or somebody else. It's gonna read something, gonna basically think, oh, I think is this. And once you do that, once you create that relationship, it's harder for you to forget. For example, what do you think sono means? And judging by the dialogue, this is the Italian one, it says, Ciao, sì, sono Melissa, e tu? That's the answer to the question, Melissa. So basically, the person say, hi, yes, I am Melissa, and you. So sono, it's like, I am. You already infer that. It's not hard based on the text. So it kind of gets you primed to learn the language, right? Infer the meaning of a word is much better than look up the meaning of a word because you have a stronger connection, a stronger um, cognition level to that structure, to that word. And then you keep on moving on, and you have essential phrases and things like that, and expressions, and some vocab. That is basically the same structure that Teach Yourself uses. Okay, so these are basically, I think this is a couple years old, but it is, if you look at them, they have the same base. So the dialogues, the lessons could have been created by anybody. But the catch of this book is that every page has a tip. Every page has a comment in a very clever way, in a very like how can I put it? Almost informal way. It looks like was handwritten here. You have this type and this type. So imagine like you're reading a book and you have a teacher right there by your side saying, "Hey, look at this. This is important for the language. This is different because of this and this and this." And that's where the books differ from each other. All these hints are language oriented, are language dependent. So, for example, the Italian one will talk about Italian special characteristics or details. The French will have the French ones. So that's how the books are personalized per language. That's where it differs. If you go by structure, they are the same almost to the page number, right? But then when it comes to content, it differs because, of course, each language will have different structure, will have its own exceptions. So those details is what makes it different. So if you look at it at the main structure of it, it looks like just any other book, be it by Teach Yourself or any other publisher. But then imagine that he is right there saying, "Hey, look at this, this piece of text, or this expression. That's why you use it. That's why it looks weird." For example, let's get another one from French. Here, for example, it says, "You may recognize ratatouille as a famous French dish. La salade aux chèvres chaude is another common dish that's easy on the wallet Uh, oh, and then in brackets, and a personal favorite of mine. So it's basically him making a comment. Okay, so it's bringing to memory. Oh, look at this. This is common. This is a dish, or um, hints on the word like. Interestingly, the verb adorer is a bit of an exception. You'd expect I love it to be je l'adore. To say you love something, simply say j'adore. It is implied. So you have grammar hints, you have expressions, you have idioms that are explained on these little hints on the side. So basically, you have Benny Lewis over your shoulder explaining the book, and that is one of the things that amazes me, because the concept of having comments on the side of the side of the page is not new. You know, on the student side, it is not as common. But if you get other language books like Mary, you have those comments on the side, like hints to online material or vocab lists. And if you take the teacher's version, in this case is vis-a-vis, you have comments to the teachers, right? So these markings wouldn't be in a student version of the book. Only in a teacher's version, you would have all these blue markings on the pages as basically saying to the teacher, hey, talk about this and talk about that. Here, he's talking to you. He's basically saying, hey, look at this, look at that. If you would like to use this to teach, it is amazing. You can use the same way, using these hints as things that you would say to your students, right? Okay, talking about students and teachers. Um, each book is about 230, 240 pages long, right? And a normal book, like this one, Italian, Teach Yourself, the newest version, is about 400 pages, give and take, with vocab and a glossary and the keys to the exercises. So the book is very rich for the beginner level that it offers, is very rich. If you approach it with experience in another language, it's gonna be fast paced and it's gonna be just right. You're gonna notice that there's just enough content as you want to have. For a beginner, for a person that is starting, this may look a little overwhelming. This may look a little overwhelming. It's kind of thick for, I think it's 8. It's kind of thick for 10 units. Okay, it's 10 units with 3 conversations per unit. Unit 10 doesn't have a whole lot, doesn't have units, but it has a special mission that you have. Each unit has a mission that you have to accomplish. It's like you have to speak, you have to apply what you learn, which is a very good kind of kick in the butt to get out and speak. But it is quite a lot of material for 9.5 units. But like I said before, it is like studying the book with the author on your shoulder, explaining the details. Um, Content-wise, per page, you should be able to go through a couple pages a day. That doesn't mean you're gonna learn everything in those pages, because although there is a section just for the vocabulary, like a chart or a table, whatever you may call, um, giving the meaning, sometimes pronunciation and things like that. The phrases will come with more vocab, so the vocab amount will increase the time you have to take to really absorb that, unless you are a master on using flashcards and or other vocabulary memorization software. Um, So it's gonna take some time for you to get through it. So if you go through a page a day, it would take um, I'd say eight 8 months. If you're a little faster, 6 months. If you're an avid language learner, you could go through it in less than 6 months. Maybe 3 months, depends on how much time you have to spare and how much you can absorb of vocab. If you have experience with other languages, maybe even faster. But if you're just starting, it may be a little overwhelming. So, like I said, each book has the same structure, and you're gonna have the same content, the same comments um, on the language. It will differ based on the difference between a language and the other. Let me see what else I'm gonna talk about. I made some notes here so I don't miss anything. Those hints, they come almost every page, but the amount of hints is more than one per page. The average is more than, I would say, is almost two per page. So there's a lot of comments, a lot of hints, a lot of language hacks that you may apply to your learning style as you go through the book. All the comments are language dependent, unless it's a very broad linguistic. It has a linguistic application to it. Let me see. Yeah, I show you the comments. Oh, I'm gonna take this chance to basically reply to a video that I watched on YouTube. It's called Fluent ASAP, from the channel called Fluent ASAP, and the person talking there, he's kind of giving a little rant on language hacking. He used some bold statements like language hacking is used by lazy people or people that don't really want to learn the language. They are not interested in the language. They just want to learn as fast as possible. And although I understand the principle behind um, the existence of lazy people and people that do not appreciate the language, they just have to learn it, I'd say that language hacking, it may be something that is not for everybody. It's not something that a lazy person would try, because look at this. It is 240 pages with hints with language hacking. I If I were a lazy person, I wouldn't face a 200 almost 250 page book to learn these hacks, right? I'll try something easier. I'll take more shortcuts. Language hacking is just a way to approach the language without the overwhelming effect. For example, I take it as a anxiety control, because what happens is, when you're trying to learn a language and you don't see yourself progressing, when you're learning a language and you can't communicate right away, you are afraid of making mistakes. It is terrible. It is terrible. You don't want to talk, and then your progression is stopped. For people that follow my channel, you know that I just finished a Ed1 challenge with Greek, right? I studied Greek for 90 days. And there were moments that I didn't feel like I was progressing at all. And there were some other times that I would try to speak and I could not speak Greek for the sake of my life. And those moments are really critical, because for people that lack the diligence and determination to just plow through and continue on with the process, with the study, they will quit. They'll just stop. Like, hey, I'm not getting anything out of this, so I'm stopping right here. With these hints, you can go right away into the language and use it, apply, and communicate. That takes the anxiety away, and you think, oh my gosh, I'm like, if you see at the end of the lessons here, you have a little checkbox that is called, let me show you here. as soon as I can find it. Come on, let me just show one. Here, show what you know. And it's basically a checklist of the things that you learned so far. And when you get to the end of the unit, you just check the box. You actually know how to do that. And you can communicate with a person and apply that. I call that an anxiety control line. And those come in the hints too. So by doing that, you have more motivation to study. You have the like a booster to continue on, and that's really important. So I don't think that a language hack is for a lazy person, is for a person that doesn't appreciate the language. I think the language hack is an anxiety control. It is a motivational tool to keep on moving, because language gets tough. Language learning gets tough, and sometimes you just feel like quitting because you don't see yourself progressing when you're actually progressing. You're on the inside, you can't really tell. It is a very slow process, but it actually happens. Okay, so continue on with the books. My overall opinion of the books, they are challenging. They are beginner level, they are easy, but they do challenge you. You have large list of words and expressions to memorize and things like that, so will push you. You may go slow, a page a day or so, as you can go. If you're one of those language devourers, you can go like 3-4 pages a day, and will challenge you. It's gonna give you a lot of hints, a lot of things to learn, and then you have your mission. You learn everything, and then you have to apply. You have to find somebody to talk to, and you have to apply what you learn. It is merciless. It's gonna give you what it is, and you have to learn. The good thing is there's no BS in the book. You know, what you see is what you need. There's a section of extra words that you can replace in case you want to change, because when you're talking, you can talk about you can talk as if you were Benny Lewis. You have to talk as yourself, right? So you have to change your profession, you have to change your hobbies, you have to change your preferences, your nationality, the languages you speak, why you're studying, what you like in life. You have to change those things. So there's a list of options that you can switch back and forth to tailor your presentation to yourself. So that's a very good thing. The book is 100% communication oriented. You're gonna learn the words that you use all the time, expressions, the dialogues, and it's all for you to speak. At the end of each unit, you have your mission, you have to speak it. And I would counsel you to do that. My personal experience is the lack of human interaction will hinder your progression. Let me say this again. The lack of human interaction will hinder your progression. What do I mean by this? I mean that if you're studying a language, you're not interacting with another human being, if you're not speaking the language, you're not gonna progress. You're just gonna learn a whole bunch of theoretical points and expressions, whatever, but it's not really gonna be part of your communication skills. It's just gonna be knowledge acquired. It's just gonna be a check in the box. You don't want a check in a box. You want something that you can speak, that you can communicate. It may be slow, it may be with an accent, but it's communication, and that's what you want. Another thing that I liked in the books, he gives a lot of non-verbal clue identifiers. For example, one of the situations, he talks about you interacting in a restaurant. You're talking to the waitress, and she comes to you and blah 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 blah. You didn't understand anything. The hint at that point is look at her or him, and what is their expression, facial expression? Where are they looking at? Where to what are they pointing? What is the environment? What are they presenting? Those hints are generally not mentioned in language learning because we are focusing on the language. But there's a lot of non-verbal clues that will help you understand what's going on. For example, if you see me talking, you're not listening to me, and I do this, and I start like moving my hand and moving the book back and forth and flipping through the pages, you automatically understand that I'm explaining, introducing, or talking about that book, right? So that helps you understand. I'm gonna look for the words book. I'm gonna look about words that express opinion. I'm gonna look for adjectives because I'm talking about something. I'm qualifying or quantifying something. So you're gonna look for those clues that helps you to understand the language. I already talked about the anxiety control lines, which are the hints on, for example, if it gets to a part where the grammar is too confusing, he says, okay, here's how the grammar works in this part, but don't worry about it. It's not important. Just learn this and move on. That is very critical because, for example, for me, when I'm studying and I get to a part where the grammar is complex, I'm gonna sit there and try to figure it out, and that takes a lot of time. Excuse me, and it takes a lot of patience. Sometimes it may overwhelm you, and some people will stop right there. Hold on. I should have plugged my computer to stop having the screensaver. Anyway, so those things are really important. That you don't quit, that you stay motivated in learning a language. So those things are very important to have there, to be there. He also encourages to make mistakes. To make mistakes in the language is critical. Critical. When I was a instructor in a language training center in Brazil, I taught Portuguese to Americans, to American missionaries. We had a director that he always said, in order to learn this language, you have to make thousands of mistakes. So the sooner you make 5, 7, 10,000 mistakes, sooner you're gonna learn the language. And that's true because when you're not worried about the mistakes you're making, you don't have anything holding you back. You don't have anything keeping you from speaking. If you're not afraid of making mistakes, you're gonna speak more. If you speak more, you can be corrected more. You can have more experience, more practice in the language. So that is essential. So if you forget about the fear, if you leave aside the fear of making mistakes, you're gonna progress much faster. And he makes sure to let you know, like, hey, don't worry about this. One of the greatest examples, if you go at the end of the book, it talks about, it gives like a general it's called getting ready for your first conversation. So basically the guidelines for a conversation. And one of the the topics that really sticks out is called Tarzan French or Tarzan Italian, which means basically you're gonna use the language without prepositions, not worrying about verb conjugation. Say me hungry, me thirsty, me Brazilian, me tourist, you tourist. Forget the grammar, forget the details, just use it. Don't worry about what is missing. You're gonna learn that with time. The important thing is to communicate. Put it out there, somebody will correct you. Or you're gonna listen to somebody saying that and you're gonna notice, oh, I made a mistake right there, and you correct yourself, which is even better than being corrected. Okay, two things that I kind of cringed a little bit, but again, this is a basic book. You're not gonna find an index for grammar principles or a glossary. There is none. You're gonna have the grammar points and the vocab as you go. As you move through the units, you're gonna receive the hints on and the explanations on the grammar and the vocab lists and the differences in between them. I am a grammar guy. I learned to love grammar So today what I do, I study grammar, but the study of grammar is not essential for communication. To improve, to get to a higher level, yes. But for a beginner's level, no. You can learn a language without studying a bit of grammar. That's how you learn your first language. So that's how you may learn your second, your third, your fourth language, right? So if you pay attention on the lessons, on the hints, you're gonna get the grammar. You're gonna have the explanation of basic grammar that you need to keep on moving on, and then you refine your skills with other books. And the glossary, the same thing. Which my advice is, as you read the book, just take a little notebook aside and write the words down. Writing is an awesome exercise to memorize vocab, expressions, and things like that. So, going back to the basics, is it a conversational course? Yes. It is for beginners, definitely. You're not gonna get to an intermediate level with this book, but you're definitely gonna get to a point where you can speak. Learn by speaking right away, definitely. Which having a mission on each unit, you have to speak. There's no other option, right? Look at this. Embrace your mistakes. The sooner you embrace your mistakes, sooner you're gonna be speaking the language with confidence. Sooner you'll be really developing your skills in that language. Master power phrases. Each unit or so has a list of phrases that you're gonna be using all the time. Those are the power phrases that you can rely on them on the conversation. As you use, you communicate. If you memorize, you identify. So there's productive and receptive language on that. Do 20% of the work, get 80% of the results. It's kind of hard to quantify, but there is some good basis here that would help you with the majority of the language. That is true. If you learn to master the basics, everything else will fall into place. Okay. I was thinking about making comments about numbers, but I'm not gonna do that because numbers are a very superficial way to define things in language learning, especially when it comes to percentages and things like that. I can't tell you if the 20-80% rule will apply here, but you definitely learn the basics very well and you'll develop the ability to speak. And plus, the books are very contemporary. And for example, even on the French version, you have the new spelling reform. You have an add-on at the end of the book that talk about the new spelling reform. So they are contemporary. You're not gonna find things here that are archaic or is gonna make you sound weird when you speak the language. And plus, I know that all the comments that he made in the book are based on his own experience because he does speak those languages. So if he would be making a book in Turkish, I would think like, well, I don't know if he really understands that much, but on those four languages, yes, I'm pretty sure he does. So I like the books. There are things here and there that at first it looked kind of, why is that happening, like the cookie cutter format of the books, but then you understand you gotta have a basic structure and then you just add on because you can't if he were to make each book its original version different from the other books, it would be really complicated because the basics of languages are the basics for every language. So if I think it's safe for me to say that if you get one of these books and you just, let's suppose you want to learn Chinese, you can get these books. When you get to the language part, you just turn them into Chinese. It would work. Of course, you're gonna lose the hints. Some of the most of the hints will not apply to other languages. But guess what? You can ask other people. If you write a sentence, you look it up, you use this book in connection with some other book. Like you take a complete book like this one for Mandarin, and then you get the language hacking for French. You follow the structure of the book with the content of the textbook, and I'm pretty darn sure you're gonna have similar results. If you wanna find language hacks for Mandarin, it is pretty easy. If you Google language hacks or hacking Mandarin or tips for Mandarin, I'm pretty sure you're gonna find it. So overall, is a very good guide. It is very unique. It combines characteristics of many different sources. No, I'm not saying he copied from other sources. I'm saying that he does here what other people have done in other books with his style. Even the book that I'm preparing has things that happen to be here. It's not that I copied from him. Is that there's not a whole lot of new things in language learning. You know, if I get a manual that was written 100 years ago for French, will have nearly the same structure of a book that was recently published, because there's only one way to approach language. It's a progressive way from the basic to the advanced, from the most simple to communicate to the most to the hardest grammar structure and polite versions of formal versions, you name it. And you have this um, sequence to follow in language learning in order to achieve an advanced level. So again, I like the books. I'm actually gonna be using the German version myself, and some of the Italian too. French and Spanish, I think I'm past what the books offer, but Italian and German. In other words, I'm gonna be using the method for what I need with German and Italian, and I'll try to apply to other languages too that I'm learning, that I'm studying currently. So thumbs up to the books, to the method, to the structure. Um, Benny, great job. I really like the books, and I'm pretty sure everybody that puts their hands on the book will like it. Again, Jonathan, thank you so much for sending me the books. I really appreciate that, and I'm gonna put them to good use. I'm gonna use the French one to teach my daughter French. But that's it. So um, some people may not agree with my opinion, but again, it's just an opinion, right? You're free to think and decide for yourself what you think. If you like this style, you like this style. If you don't like this style, I can spend hours talking. I'm not gonna convince you. So find what you like and keep on moving. Language learning is worth the effort. Through his method, through somebody else's method, if you want to create your own method, go for it. Teach people, because once we learn, we should teach. What we give, we receive back. Okay, so I hope you guys like it. If you have any comment, you can send me a message, write a comment, whatever. And thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time.